Slowly round and round we go, but there's never time. Never understanding why we walk the line. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
You guys look great. You look marvelous. All you people online, you look great. You know why you look so great? Because you look wiser. Already, last weekend we launched the series. Drew did a great job, and he challenged all of you to pursue wisdom, and including reading a chapter a day from the book of Proverbs, because there's 31 Proverbs in the book. You can read a chapter a day on the day of the month it is, and so all of you have been doing that. I can tell you look wiser. You've applied it to your life, so you're calmer, so your relationships are better, because we all need help with our relationships. So you just look really, really good. By the way, I want to re-challenge you to read a proverb a day through this series. And our goal is that all of us will have read through the book of Proverbs together. And so tomorrow is chapter 16. Tomorrow is chapter 16 because tomorrow is April 16th. And it will take you 3 minutes and 15 seconds to read chapter 16. Be wise. Read it. And that's our hope, is that all of us will improve. And that's why we're looking so good. You're looking good. You see, all of us need help in our relationships. We confess that. We know that relationship involves people, and people are a challenge. And our relationships are challenged. I mean, every marriage needs improvement. I very seldom run into a marriage that says, we're as good as we can get. This is awesome. It's like, no, improvement. How about parents with kids and kids with parents? How about single parents with their kids and kids with single parents? How about single parents' relationship with their exes and kids with their step-parents? Do we need some improvements? How about friends? You have old friends, you have new friends, you have challenges. If you're dating, sometimes your relationship gets bogged down and it's not moving forward, and you need help with your relationship. If you're in a relationship with your boss or your supervisor or employee to employee, you need some help. Maybe it's your neighbor, maybe it's your roommate, maybe it's your cousin, maybe it's your teammates. If you're on a team, you know, they don't know that there is no I in team. And so they just act like it's all about them, and that's a challenge in a relationship. How about a challenge with the customer service employee that doesn't even know how to spell customer service? That's a challenged relationship. How about this? Even at church. I mean, you walked in today and somebody was sitting in your seat, crying out loud. And when you get bogged down in the parking lot and you wave to someone, sometimes you don't include all 5 fingers. We have cameras. Come as you are. That's all right. We need wisdom. Everyone does, because we have relationships that need wisdom. And if we're going to make this practical, if it's really going to be helpful, God's Word does, and this book of Proverbs is full of wisdom. We just have to listen and learn, which is what we're talking about today. Drew did a great job also of challenging us and setting up the course of the weekend of this series by saying, we can't change them. Realize that. We can't change others, but we can change. Me, myself, and I. And as we apply this truth to us, just maybe our world will change. You may have heard this wise saying, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. What are we talking about? Wisdom? There it is. I mean, that's a proverb. The serenity prayer is a proverb in and of itself. And like many, when you hear something like the serenity prayer for the first time, you go, oh, I've never heard that before. That's good. And you hear it the second time, you go, yeah, I've heard that before. The third time you go, well, that's good, but I know that. And the fourth time you hear it, you go, you know what? I needed to hear that again. The fifth time you go, I still need to hear that. The sixth time you say, I need to hear that every day. Because there's a humility that sets in our world where we start with arrogance, like, I know that, to, oh man, I need to do that. Stinking thinking needs to change to good thinking. And one of the ways that we can do that is by reading Proverbs again and again and again and again. Just maybe the way we live may improve if we change the way that we think. So we're diving into this series. It's a great series, very practical. Come every week. All your foolish friends need to come. I'm just saying, don't tell them, hey, you're foolish and you need to come, but you need to invite them so that we can become wiser. With that wisdom comes better relationships. One of the things Proverbs talks about, and one of the things that's hard about relationships, is communication. And so this weekend, we're going to look at one aspect of communication, a very important one, but we're going to look at one aspect of communication that Proverbs speaks of, and it is the aspect of listening. Listening. The challenge of listening. Epictetus, which was a 2nd century Stoic Greek philosopher, I know all of you guys knew that, but what did he say that you might know? We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. My mom used to say it this way: God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Okay, whichever way, my mom or Epictetus, it's still true. There's something about our ratio that often we speak more than we listen. But wisdom says we might listen more than we speak. Last night, a dentist came up and told me this truth, but he said there's 4 muscle groups that open and close your mouth. 3 of them close it, 1 of it opens. Some of us need to exercise the 3 versus the 1. Isn't it true that we kind of notice good listeners? And if somebody may have complimented you at some time because they said, you know what, you're a good listener. And you know why good listeners are noticed? Because we live in a world where no one listens. There's something about this aspect of communication that stands out when you run into it, because everybody is living a world that's all about them. Why do I need to listen to you? Because it's all about me, what I have to say and what I think. Why should I listen to you? Well, there is a deeper truth that we understand in this room as we're looking at Scripture, that God made people, and people matter to God, and every child of God matters, and listening communicates that. Everyone has a voice. Everyone deserves to be heard. And sometimes what they say really isn't that good to listen to, and we shouldn't listen to it, but everyone has a voice and deserves to be heard in the way that most of us relate. So it's right for us to pause. It's right for us to focus on this weekend on the topic of listening. So I'm just going to start with how to be a great listener. And honestly, there are books, there are websites, there's advice that's common knowledge that I'm just going to review 4 major ways that people talk about being a good listener. And then I'm going to get into God's Word in the book of Proverbs and bring it on home. So first suggestion of being a good listener is to focus. Remove and avoid distractions. Have eye contact. And some of you are going, okay, I'm good, let's go. That's all you needed today. You know, when I was younger and my kids were younger, there was this invention or this thing they had called newspapers. And I used to read the paper, and I would read it, and my kids would jump up on my lap and take their hands and smash the newspaper and said, Daddy, look at me. That's what they used to do. And then there were these things, then God invented this wonderful thing called TV, and then he invented this wonderful thing called Sports Center. And so I would watch Sports Center, and then my kids would jump up on my lap, and they would take their hands and put it on both sides of my cheeks, and they would say, look at me, Daddy. I know I'm not the only one that's happened to. And then I realized that to maintain my marriage and have it be healthy and vibrant, it might be good if I kept dating my wife. So I would set up date nights, and we get a sitter, and we go out on a date, and we go to a restaurant, and the restaurants that we could afford all had TVs, and they would have the game on, whatever game it was, and I would be sitting there with my wife, and I would glance at the game, and my wife would say, she didn't say it like this, but basically she came in second again. That's what happens. Focus, priority. I learned through the years, and thank God, it took me a while, but God made these things called DVRs, so I could DVR the game. And then when I go to the restaurant, I sit with my back to the TV. I literally do. Wherever the TV is, I sit with my back because I'm not strong enough yet. I'm a weak man. I'm not strong enough yet to keep the focus all there, so I do whatever it takes. If I'm going to get points, I need to get the points. You know what I'm saying? Cell phones then showed up. A $1,000 computer in your hand, basically, with access to every bit of knowledge in the whole world. And what has that done to focus and distractions? And what does it communicate to our kids that what's happening here is much more important than you? What does it communicate to our spouses when what's happening here is much more important than you? You want to be a great listener? Focus, eye contact. How about a second idea of being a great listener? Hear more than just words. You know there's things called nonverbal communication, tone of voice that you pick up, not just the content of the words, but the tone of voice. Do you guys hear that? The nonverbals and the tone? Recently, my wife and I had deep fellowship. Now, I've talked about intense fellowship, which is our version of fighting. Deep fellowship is where we really go deep and emotions are shared and heartfelt stuff is being said and it's tender and important. And we had a really, really good talk, and I thought we were done. And so at the end of it, I walked across the room and gave her a hug, and I noticed something. She didn't really hug back. And I realized that we really weren't done yet. And so I sat back down and we continued to talk, and there was more in the conversation that we needed to talk about because I noticed nonverbal communication. I may not be a smart man, but I'm learning. And some of you need to learn to listen to nonverbals and to tone of voice. And when you do, and when you listen to that, you become a better listener. How about this one? Reflecting. When you listen, you reflect back something. What I hear you saying, it sounds like. Now, this is Communication 101. This is going to be beautiful. You'll appreciate it. Here it is, person one, person two. They're very tall. Person one sends a message to person two, person A to person B. How does person A know the message was received? Because of this thing called feedback and a response. When this cycle is complete, communication has happened. And that's theory. It's very simple. When the person does not reflect back or does not communicate back to you in such a way that lets them know that you actually heard, they often they didn't receive my message, so I need to send it again. And this time when they send it again, it may be louder. And if the person doesn't respond well, then they escalate and get even louder that you didn't hear what I was saying. What shuts down that increase of volume is when person B gives feedback that lets person A know that message was received. Oh, okay, you heard me. Catch that phrase? You heard me. How do you know if you've been heard? And if you want to be a good listener, you can actually take the baby steps, kind of like the toddler phase, literally start your sentence this way. What I heard you say was, and you repeat to them as almost exactly what they said. And the person goes, yeah, that's what I said. Yay, touchdown. You can go to the next level, elementary level, where you summarize what they say into a thought. Instead of the exact words, you go, it sounds like you were saying this. Well, yeah, that's what I was saying. All right, touchdown, it's all good. Can we do that? Can we reflect back? What I'm saying to you means message is received, and I really heard what you were saying. One of my problems is my wife says stuff to me, and I hear it, and I think about it, and I'm processing it, and I think about it, and I'm processing it, and she goes, did you hear me? I go, oh, yeah, man, I've been with you. I've been thinking. Does my feedback let her know that? Nope. It lets her know that I heard and I said nothing, did nothing. That's not very helpful to someone. And so I have to learn to, when I do think through what I'm going to say back, that I say, boy, that's good, I'm thinking about it. That at least lets her know I got it and I'm thinking. Because if I just don't say anything, it sounds like you don't matter. So feedback is critical. Got it? Reflect back. It makes you a better listener. How about this one? Ask great questions. Ask great questions. When somebody communicates to you, what is your response going to be? What if it's a question? A question that says, can you tell me more about? Because the tell me more about is what you just said, so it communicates I just heard what you said, but if I'm curious about more, the conversation keeps going. More is said, more is heard, more is said, more is heard. One of the things that we do as listeners is we shut down the conversation. How do we do that? Well, for me, I get distracted as they're talking because I'm starting to worry about what I'm going to say back. Because, you know, it's my job. I'm a pastor, and people come to me and say, Pastor, let me tell you this. And they tell me stuff, and I'm going, oh, I have to give the right answer. I have to give a godly answer. What am I going to say? And I get focused on what I'm going to say instead of really listening to what they are saying. And we feel the pressure to give the right answer. Sometimes we aren't really listening to the communication because as they start, we feel an urgency to correct their point of view, and we don't really want them. We want them to stop so we can hurry up and say what's right, because what they're saying is so wrong. I'm not saying that ever happens. I'm just saying sometimes. Sometimes it's a weakness on our part that what they're saying is so uninformed that we need to start talking because we know everything about what they don't know about. And so we need to get our point of view across. This cycle gets bogged down because we're so worried about what we're going to say. And what I might want to challenge you is, what if you, at the end of receiving a message, worried about what question you're going to ask next? Parents with kids, when your kids finally talk to you, say you have a teenager that finally says more than one word. And when they say more than one word, instead of saying, well, I need to correct what you're saying because that's so wrong, or I'm really worried about what you're saying, what if you still followed with another question? And said, well, tell me a little bit more about, where did you hear about? When did you start thinking about that? Does somebody you know think that way? Or whatever, you ask inquiring questions and the conversation continues. It's one of the best ways to keep it going as a good listener. These are just 4 ideas out of the chute. Any one of these 4s can help you be a better listener. And you can keep learning and growing and pursuing listening by going online, seeing things, reading books, listening to TED Talks or whatever on the topic, but you can keep learning. Today, the rest of this message, we're going to go to Proverbs because, believe it or not, the book of Proverbs talks about listening, the skill of listening, the value of listening, and how that can help us be wise. And just to start off with, the difference listening to wisdom makes. We're starting there. It's one thing to have wisdom and to read wisdom, but what if we don't do anything with it? Listen and learn. That's the idea, the value of listening and learning. Now, I mentioned this briefly, and now I'm going to mention it more clearly. Last weekend, as Drew got us started, he did a great job talking about the positive aspect of wisdom and that we want to be wise and all of that. But there's something unspoken that I'm going to speak today. And it's this: if we don't make a wise decision, then we make a flawed decision. We make a not so smart decision. We make a not very informed decision. Well, we can go ahead and say the word. If we don't make a wise decision, we make a foolish decision. Kevin said the F word. Yes, I did. It's not politically correct. And I do not want to empower you to go out there and call people the F word. But we're not worried about changing them. We're about changing us. And what's the truth we need to speak to us? If we choose not to listen to wisdom, we are foolish. It's true. What if we chose to be wise? Then we would listen to wisdom and apply the wisdom to our life. We would listen to wisdom and learn what it says, and we would live out that learning in the way that we would act. That's how we become wise. It doesn't help calling people fools. It does help when we realize that what we are doing is foolish and we choose to follow wisdom. We choose to pursue wisdom. Here's what Proverbs says about this listening to wisdom. Let the wise listen to these proverbs and become even wiser. Let those with understanding receive guidance. Do we need trusted guidance? Absolutely. Proverbs 8:1, listen as wisdom calls out. Hear as understanding raises her voice. And one of the things you'll learn as you read through Proverbs is wisdom has a female voice in Proverbs. She is wise. Let her voice call out. And that's an interesting aspect. It's also personified, like wisdom as a person. Listen as wisdom calls out. Hear as understanding raises her voice. How about this one, Proverbs 8:6? Listen to me, for I have important things to tell you. Everything I say is right. Wisdom is calling. Are you listening? In chapter 8, verse 32, and so, my children, listen to me, for all who follow my ways are joyful. Listen to my instruction and be wise. Don't ignore it. Joyful are those who listen to me, watching for me daily at my gates, waiting for me outside my home. Instruction, this is how you live. Do we need wise instruction? Absolutely. And what is the result? Joy? Joy versus being frustrated or angry or depressed or discouraged. Just maybe if we listen and learn, our lives will have joy. How about Proverbs 12? Fools think their own way is right, but the wise listen to others. And truly, some people that we know we should not listen to. But the ones that we know we should listen to, are we listening? And finally, Proverbs 16:20, those who listen to instruction will prosper. Those who trust the Lord will be joyful. Prospering in the book of Proverbs are several verses literally about finances. And we make wise choices with our finances, and we make foolish choices with our finances. Listen to wisdom and learn, and you'll prosper. You'll not only prosper financially, you'll prosper relationally, you'll prosper in how the fruit of your life. So here's the question. If wisdom is speaking, are you listening? And if you are listening, listen and learn. Am I teachable? Or do I already know it all? Can anyone say anything to me that I would listen to? Can God say something to me through His Word that I would listen to? And if I listen to it, would I learn? That's the topic this weekend. The value of listening and being taught by wisdom. Here's another set of passages in the book of Proverbs. Listen without interrupting. Ooh, listen without interrupting. You can turn to somebody and say, you need to listen to this. Maybe you don't want to say that because you might be stepping on toes. But can you imagine what it would be like if we never got interrupted? Spouting off before listening to the facts is both shameful and foolish. Intelligent people are always ready to learn. Their ears are open for knowledge. Now back to this communication 101. What happens when you're interrupted? Person A sends a message and interruption shuts it down. So it's not completed. How does a person who is interrupted feel? Devalued? Judged? Like they don't matter? Is that what we really want to do to the people we love? Is to make them that what you're thinking doesn't matter enough for me to listen to a complete thought? Why would we ever interrupt? Well, Kevin, it's a matter of stewardship. Stewardship of life, because if I already know what they're going to say, it saves time for me to shut them down so I can give them the feedback that I want to give them. We'll have more time to talk and do other things. If I interrupt, it just saves a lot of time. You hear how silly that sounds, right? And it's almost like, well, if I'm this person and I start to talk and I get interrupted because they know what I'm going to say and they give me the feedback, it's kind of like, who's not needed in this conversation is me. You can go have a conversation by yourself. You can imagine what I'm going to say, and then you can think about how you're going to respond and what I'm going to say again and why you're going to respond. You can have your talk with you all day, and I'll go watch the game. Didn't we have a good talk, honey? Can you tell that's a little sarcastic? But isn't that kind of how we feel? Proverbs 18:13, to answer before listening, that is folly and shame. Do we want to diminish people and make them feel less? Or do we want to show we care for people and listen to their complete thought? There's some wisdom in the New Testament that I also want to point out. There's a book of James, which is called the Proverbs of the New Testament. And James was a half-brother of Jesus, and he became a follower after the resurrection when he saw that Jesus rose from the grave, and he ended up becoming the head leader of the church in Jerusalem. And as a wise person at the end of his days, he wrote the book of James. So included in the book of James is a bunch of wisdom, including this wisdom in James 1. Understand this, my dear brothers and sisters. You must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. Human anger does not produce the righteousness God desires. Boy, that's good. Quick to talk is what an interrupter is. Quick to talk. Sometimes quick to get angry also shuts down the communication, versus what James says, quick to listen. Are you quick to listen? Good question. There's one other section of Proverbs we're going to talk about listening, and it has to do with criticism. Listen to valid criticism, Proverbs says. And somebody can turn to you and say, man, you need to listen to that. Yeah, we do. This is a universal. I don't know anyone that walks around saying, you know, would you please criticize me right now? I need some good criticism. It's just not what's in us. But listen to Proverbs 15:31. If you listen to constructive criticism, you will be at home among the wise. If you reject discipline, you only harm yourself. But if you listen to correction, you grow in understanding. Most of us honestly live life in this way. I am awesome, and everything I do is awesome, and any time you want to tell me how awesome I am, please give me that feedback. That's really how we walk around. When somebody comes with criticism, we defend, we deflect, we shut down, we don't listen because it usually hurts, and so we get defensive. But sometimes that wisdom is exactly what we need to hear to get better. And when it's a trusted voice that you know has wisdom in it and that they love you and they're telling you something for your own good, valid criticism is something we need to be open to receive. For example, when I was a young seminary student, I was in a class with this professor who was very gifted. And there were 6 of us, and the goal of the class was to integrate into real life the egghead stuff we were learning in seminary. And it was a great little class. And at the very last day, in the last 20 minutes, he gives, I'm going to do something now. It's going to be a challenge for you, but I want you to learn the value of it. I'm going to give you some feedback. That's what he called it. I'm going to give each of you individual personalized feedback. And he did it in public, meaning in front of all 6 of us. And he started with this guy over here, and what he told that guy, you're good at this, but this is something, if you could improve in this, it would make your ministry better. And I listened to him, and I go, man, he's dead on, that's awesome. And he did it the same way for all the guys, and then he got to me. And I was already defensive and putting up my guard. And this is what he said to me. He goes, Kevin, you shift between sarcasm and sincerity too quickly. And people can't follow you because you do it so fast. And of course I said, you're wrong. Who are you? You don't know what you're talking about. That's the instinct. But because I had seen this guy for the semester, I saw how wise he was, and I saw how accurate he was for these other 5 guys, I listened. And eventually I understood how right he was. I love trash talk. I love trash talk. I love sarcasm. It's all sports, you just trash talk. And it's a lot of fun, and that's a way of me communicating I like you when I trash talk with you. It makes sense to those of us that trash talk. We know what I'm saying. But I'm also a shepherd, the shepherding gift, and I love sheep, and I love encouraging sheep when they're doing well, and when they do something that's positive, I want to encourage them to keep doing it and thank them for their effort and all of that, and I sincerely mean that. So I trash talk, and then I sincerely give a compliment, and people can't catch the compliment because they're worried that I'm trash talking them. And that's not what I want. So I've learned through the years that when I get to the compliment, I say, no, seriously. That's what I say, seriously. No, I communicate. No, this is sincere. You're really good at this. And thank you for bringing that to our church. We need that. And when I say that sincerely, then the people go, I think he means it. And that's a good thing. I didn't see that until this guy held up a mirror, said, Kevin, do you see this? That's what you do. Did that make me better? Oh, yeah. Playing sports, I had coaches that would look at the game film and they would say, this is the way you did it. This is the way you need to do it. Did that help? Absolutely. If I chose to say, you're wrong, coach, I sat on the bench. If I said, coach, you are so wise, I will listen to what you're saying. No, I knew inside that I needed to improve. Who tells you that? When you get someone who loves you, cares for you, and you trust that says, you got some food stuck in your teeth. What are you going to do about it? Do you say, no, I don't, or do you say, thank you? Proverbs 25:12 says, to one who listens, valid criticism is like a gold earring or other jewelry. What you just told me is gold. Who do you have that speaks that truth in your life? And will you listen and learn when they do? What criticism do you need to listen to? Whoa, that's a tough question. And if you have a lot of courage, what if your assignment out of this message this week is to go up to a trusted friend and initiate the conversation this way? You know what? I know I can improve in this area, whatever you choose, and say, could you tell me one thing that I could do that you've noticed that if I stopped doing it and improved it, it would make me a better husband, better father, better friend, whatever you need to improve in if you ask someone the truth and you trusted it and it was gold. Hopefully you see the value of this wisdom and how practical it is and how we need it. And we'll just start from listening and learning. Listening well and learning. Can I become a great listener? And the answer is yes, you can if you want to. If you really apply the lessons we've talked about this weekend, you can improve as a listener. And don't the people that you love the most deserve a good listener like you? How about this? Am I still teachable? Or do I already know it all and I don't need to listen to anybody? Or can I listen to wisdom and learn? Here's one that's harder. Do I interrupt people? How often do I interrupt? Why do I interrupt? What if I became a person that received the whole message? And can I receive valid criticism? Those are great questions. Now I'm going to add a bonus. We're talking about listening. How about this one? Do you listen well to God? Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10 is a classic verse. But do you know the truth that God is speaking all the time? Are you listening? And if you don't hear him, it isn't because he's not speaking, it's because we're not listening. How does God speak all the time? He speaks through creation all the time, and we don't spend time in creation enough to hear it. Maybe he speaks through Christian friends and the Holy Spirit that's in them, and they say things that you need to hear. Are you listening? Does he speak through circumstances as you notice what open doors and closed doors are going on in your life, and are you noticing what God is up to? And he speaks through his word. So what if you read a chapter every day of the book of Proverbs and let him speak to you? Would you listen to him? And if you listened, would you listen and learn? You know, you do look better. You look wiser. You look more at peace because your relationships are getting better. And because you are wise enough to listen and learn. That's what I hope happens to all of us because of this weekend. Let's stand together and pray about that. God, thank you for your word that is full of wisdom. And we humble ourselves enough to say that we're still teachable, that we don't know it all. We confess there are times that we are distracted and we don't listen well to the people we love. And God, give us the courage to change something so that we can have eye contact, so we can fully receive what people are saying. God, help us as we get that one right. Help us as we value criticism. And as someone corrects us, may we receive it as gold. Help us as we pursue that. God, help us not be interrupters. God, all the things we talked about, we need improvement. And I pray that today will be the beginning of a new journey, a deeper journey of us valuing people and valuing others with this skill of listening better. We thank you for your wisdom. May we listen to it. Help us as we apply it to our lives is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. If you need prayer down front or in the lobby, connect at the corner and bring the people with you next weekend that need a little bit more wisdom. God bless. Thank you. I heard that. RidgeLife.tv, thanks for listening in today. And hopefully you got something out of the message that's going to help your week. And if you have a friend that needs some wisdom, encourage them to watch something online, one of our posts this week, and invite them next weekend as we keep going in this journey. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day.